I've recently done some videos on a new PC build that I did for 2018. And I haven't built a PC since about 2000 and, well, probably about 2014, I think, probably 4 years ago now. And in that time, you get a lot of changes. Things, they're so fast paced, everything, you have to update all your knowledge again to be current and to take advantage then of all the sort of newest features, because there's a lot of stuff I just didn't know about and or I'd just forgotten about or whatever. The last PC I built was an X79 board, an Intel X79, so it was a 2011 chipset, and that's now being replaced by an X299, and in that time lots of stuff's happened. So here we go. There's loads of these things. I kind of tried to stop the list, and I've got like 16 things here, so I have no idea how long this is going to take, but please do bear with me, and hopefully you might get something from this. Sorry if you've stumbled across this video as someone who already knows loads about PC building, because you will find some of these things incredibly sort of new, as in they're incredibly obvious to you, even though they're new to me. So firstly, and this is a sort of overarching one that covers all areas, is be wary of PC forums and PC build forums. If you're going on, there's loads of advice out there. People on YouTube make, like idiots like me, making videos on stuff, with just various bits of knowledge they've picked up, but loads and loads of forums on building PCs. The fact of the matter is, there's a lot of, how can I put it, bullshit, basically. There's a lot of bullshit on forums. And you've just got to take everything with a pinch of salt and be really careful, because otherwise you'll be just tying yourself up in knots about stuff. Some of the advice you get is just insane. It's just based on no fact and crazy, limited electronic knowledge and PC knowledge. People advising operating system reinstalls for the most stupid of things. People advising the thing you see also, oh yeah, reapply your thermal paste, that'll sort it. It's as if thermal paste is this magnificent, wondrous thing that is just impossible to get right. And it's not, and I'll come on to that a little bit later. But just take everything with a pinch of salt, because there's a lot of crap out there. And a lot of people who really know nothing, and they'll give you advice that is just complete nonsense. Secondly, NVMe M2 drives are tiny. I didn't realize how small they were. It's the first time I've seen them before, of course, and it's the first time I've worked with them and fitted them into a full desktop PC motherboard. They're tiny things, aren't they? Anyway, yeah, kind of irrelevant, but just thought I'd mention that one. Performance-wise, they're fantastic, but I did mention in a previous video that although the performance is really, really good from those drives, you're not necessarily going to get the performance gains that you might expect in games or other bits of software, startup times of software, because there's other things going on in the background. Checks on plugins, checks on VSTs, and there's all sorts of little things that are happening that are nothing really to do with the speed of the drive. So although you might get that and think everything's just going to load like this, like immediately, it's not going to work that way. So you will see improvements, definitely. You will see, in certain specific areas, you'll see improvements, but don't be surprised if it's not quite as great as you expect. And that is really the fourth thing that I learned, sort of expectations. Don't expect miracles from your new system. Like the chances are that you've been working on a system that is probably really capable of doing most of the stuff that you do. And if you jump to an upgraded system where you've just sort of bumped up the CPU, you've gone to NVMe drives, the little things like that, you're not going to see this vast improvement. You will in certain tasks. And when I built my PC, I wanted it specifically to improve the video side of things. And I've seen that. A multi-core PC has seen much improved video rendering times. I can do sort of noise reduction on video in real time now. There's things like that from someone who's producing videos is incredibly useful and a huge time saver. You know, time is money, and that kind of saves money, the fact that I can do those things quicker. But overall, as far as boot up, and yeah, don't expect miracles from it, because it's not going to be this amazing system that you maybe expect. Okay, don't obsess. Number 5 is this, back to this thermal paste. Don't obsess with thermal paste, please. It is really, really simple to apply, and if you get a bit too little and a bit too much, it doesn't really matter that much. It will spread across the CPU with heat. People have all these different methods of applying it, you know, a little grain of rice, a pea, smearing it across the chip. Tests have been done on this. I've watched videos on this, and it doesn't make a blind bit of difference. As long as you've got the basics down, you're good to go. Don't obsess with thermal paste, okay? It's not worth your time, because the chances are it's going to be working perfectly all right. If you use none, and if you use too really, really tiny amount, then yes, you might have problems. But overall, please just don't obsess with it. It's not worth it. Okay, water cooling looks great and obviously gives you more space inside your case, but it isn't actually always better. People compare air-cooled system and water-cooled systems. And I just came into building a PC, and I thought water cooling was just vastly better than air cooling, but that's not always the case. And an air-cooled system can be, with a decent heatsink, can be as good as a water-cooled system. It just doesn't look as good, and it just doesn't, you know, the heatsink isn't, the radiator isn't sat at the top of the PC out of the way of everything, so you can sort of see the lights and stuff in the PC. But as far as temperatures are concerned, a good air cooler can compete with a water-cooled system. Now, I might sort of open a can of worms there by saying that, because I'm sure there are people who've done amazing water-cooled systems and have got it loads better and have achieved much better overclocks with water cooling. But in general, don't think that a water-cooled system will always be better, because in the research that I did when building my PC, it isn't always necessary, and it isn't an essential in today's PC builds. It's just something that people like to do, I think. Okay, memory-wise, if you think 32 gig is enough currently in 2018, it's not. I upgraded from 32 gig to 64 gig, and I find now that applications, particularly when rendering high-resolution video, will chew up way more than 32 gig, where they didn't previously because they couldn't. But now I have 64, Premiere will sit there and it'll be using kind of 45 gig of memory when it's rendering certain stuff. And if you can afford it and you can put money into getting 64 or more, then go with it, because the systems, you know, the programs now, and if you're doing the kind of stuff that I'm doing, then they will use it. Okay, what else have we got? Don't worry too much. If you're using an Intel system, don't worry too much about memory speed. I think people can push money into memory speed, and I really think it's better to be pushed into maybe a better CPU or a better motherboard or something. Memory speed is, if you buy your basic sort of memory, and the speed is what is it, 220, 2333 or 2400 or whatever it is for DDR4. That speed will be fine. If you start pushing it up to kind of 4000, the return on that is going to be virtually nothing on an Intel system. I understand, though I don't know, that an AMD Ryzen system will benefit from that much more. I don't know the reason why, but I have read that, and again, that could be complete nonsense that I've read on a forum somewhere. So I don't know the technical reason for that. What else do we have? Oh yeah, cases. PC cases are way better than they used to be. I updated my PC in like 2013, 2014, but I haven't updated my case for over 10 or 15 years. I've just reused the same case. And PC cases are loads better than they used to be. If you're using an old case, get a new one, because they're just much better. Everything is so much better optimized for PC builds, and to putting SSD drives in and fitting the NVMe storage and routing cables so they're out of the way, and just all the things like that. They're just so much better. And I was really pleased with how well the PC sort of how well I was able to put the PC together and get everything out of the way and get it looking tidy and just generally get good airflow through the PC. I thought I wouldn't care about how it looked, because I've always been like, well, I don't give a crap about lights and stuff. It's just not my thing. And I don't really mind whether it looks a bit messy inside. But once I got this new case, and I mean, I don't care about lights particularly, but as far as cabling is concerned, I really did want to get them out of the way and really wanted to get it nice and tidy. So I personally thought I wouldn't care, but I did. So I don't know what sort of person you are, but you know, you might end up thinking and worrying more about that than you first thought. High core count CPUs run hot. There is no getting away from that. If you're packing a lot of cores into the same size CPU as any other CPU, it will run hot. So people are overclocking high core count CPUs and saying, oh, is it normal that I'm getting these really high temperatures? It's spiking it, like it's going straight up to 95 Celsius or something. Yeah, it is, because they run incredibly hot. And unless you can have a system that can really take that heat away quickly, and Intel, of course, have been slated because they're using thermal paste inside their CPUs, not sort of a direct sort of soldering or something. So people are delidding their CPUs to bypass that problem and get directly onto the actual, I assume, the die or whatever. I don't know. And so it's difficult to get the heat away from them. They do run hot. Okay, Noctua, is that the correct pronunciation? Noctua? Noctua fans, have you ever heard of Noctua fans? They're fairly well known for their air cooling fans, the heat sinks. If you're thinking about getting one of those and you want to know what they're like, they are really easy to mount. I was well impressed at how simple and straightforward they were to mount, and how simple it was to get the heatsink to go down, and even a big one. I think is it the DH15? I think I have in my system. How easy it is to get it to sit on top, not kind of squidge around at all on the paste, and just get those screws in and get it tight. Really nice mounting mechanism on those. Very straightforward. Asus BIOS is beautiful. I have always been a Gigabyte person, and I came over to the latest version of their BIOS, and it's great. The old sort of blue style BIOS as I had in my last PC is gone, and I don't miss it at all. I think the latest version with the full mouse control and it just looks, it's much more user friendly. It has a full kind of user interface on it, and I don't know, maybe that's true for all boards now, but I found the Asus BIOS very, very nice, and it's been really reliable. Really, you can do loads in it, and that's on the X299 Deluxe board, so it's probably got a little bit more functionality than some other boards, but really, really nice BIOS on those motherboards. Lots of fans does not necessarily mean lots of noise. I always thought that having a load of fans in a PC, if you started mounting a ton of fans to it, it's just going to be so noisy. But larger fans, as they are, they run slow most of the time. Sure, if they ramp up, then you're shifting a lot of air then, and yes, they are going to be more noisy. But with general use, they sort of sit at a reasonable RPM, maybe 800 RPM, and they make hardly any noise at all. So you can add fans to it and easily have kind of 3 or 4 fans in your system, and it's not a problem. So I've got a fan in my power supply, I've got an exhaust fan on the back, I've got a fan on the graphics card, and I've got 2 intake fans on the front. And it runs really, really quiet. I'm very, very happy with how quiet it runs. CPU fan, I forgot about the CPU fan. So yeah, the only real noise is when the CPU starts working and then the CPU fan ramps up. But systems can be really nice and quiet. I was really impressed by that. So speaking of fans still, I think there is a minimal return on having more than 2 intake fans and 1 exhaust fan. And people will again disagree with this, but on the research that I did, I found that having 2 intakes and 1 exhaust is a good amount. You know, any less than that, and you can see temperature differences. Any more than that, and the return on that is virtually nil. So unless you've got a specific setup where something's blocked in a weird way, I guess, or something like that. But really, 2 intakes, 1 exhaust, and you've got good airflow through your case. Don't worry too much about slapping fans in every possible orifice on the case, because it probably might make half a degree or a degree of difference. Is that really worth it? Probably not. And yeah, I suppose the final one really is around CPU, turbo, and P-states. So now, of course, and has been for ages, Intel Turbo Boost technology allows your CPU to ramp down, and now performance states or P-states allow the CPU to clock right down. So when my CPU sits on the desktop in Windows at like running at 1200 megahertz, and will only ramp up its cores. So it sits there at like 29 degrees. A multi-core CPU, a 16-core CPU sat there at 29 degrees. And they work brilliantly, these Intel Turbo Boosts. I don't know what I'm talking about now. Yeah, so Intel Turbo Boost and P-States work great to a point. There is some software that doesn't utilize them well. They don't ramp up fast enough. They can cause jittering. They can cause stuttering in certain programs. And there's certain audio plugins that I have that simply will not use them at all. I can go into a certain audio plugin that I use. It's a very CPU intensive audio plugin, and I can play something. CPU ramps up, the audio stutters, it falls out, and I look in the performance, and it hasn't even ramped it up from 1200 megahertz. It's still sat there at 1200 megahertz, probably using like one core or something. And so there is some software which just will not take advantage of them. So there is some benefit to going into your system and disabling some of that functionality if you feel that you're going to be using that type of thing. It's worth checking out, because I was quite surprised by that, because I would like to have a system where I can just leave it and have it kind of working working when it needs to, and sort of set and idle when it doesn't need to. But it doesn't really seem to be the case that it doesn't really work like that all the time. So there we go. There's 16 things. I'll try to get through those as quickly as I can. 16 things that I picked up and learned from my most recent PC build. If you found any of those useful, then please do give me a thumbs up on the video. And if you want to contest any of them, if you want to say they're complete bollocks, then that's fine too. You can come back in the comments or just dislike the video. But any feedback is good. So whichever way you choose to do it, it's fine by me, really. This is my experience, and hopefully someone finds it useful out there. So thanks very much for watching, and I will see you soon.